Hello there, travelers. Welcome to another side quest.
He does this every time.
I don't think we're gonna. I'm not ready to commit to that.
Oh, it's too late.
Oh, no.
We've recorded 2 episodes already. And when I'm not here, one of you has to do it.
Yeah.
Side quest.
Yep, I'll do that.
Yeah, we'll get back to the main campaign pretty soon, but we just had this minor side quest we needed to go off on today. Today, we wanted to actually try our hand at homebrewing something together. I am Thomas, the human bard.
I'm Mercy, the tiefling wizard.
And I'm Onog, the half-orc barbarian.
And we had been thinking about what we wanted to do on these side quests, and so we've recorded a couple of different things, and today we'll be actually homebrewing a player race option that we haven't seen anywhere yet, and we thought would be a fun one to do. I'm sure someone's made one, but I haven't seen it, so get on my level.
If they have, comment it below, and maybe we'll review it.
So
If they have, tell them ours is better.
tell them ours is better and like this video. So in the past, I've had a fair amount of success homebrewing races that eventually then came out to be almost exactly what I had made, with few key differences in here. I for a few of our campaigns, I homebrewed a Kenku player race that eventually, when Volo's Guide to Monsters came out, it was pretty much exactly that, with just a few key differences here and how many skills you got and what abilities were bonused and things like that.
Yeah.
Same thing with Yuan-Ti. Actually, my Yuan-Ti was much more underpowered compared to what eventually ended up coming out, so we'll see how this shakes out. And I've even made a playable centaur race for some of my friends that when the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica came out, it was pretty much exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty much exactly what I had gone through. So I kind of want us as a group to try and make a Dryad playable race.
A Dryad, you say?
Mm-hmm.
I love dryads.
I think they are a very interesting creature that has the potential to be a playable race in a campaign.
Yeah. To start, Mercy, you had actually mentioned how Mercy was raised by dryads. You want to just share a bit of that?
Yeah, well, so when I was creating Mercy, I used a lot of the tables in Xanathar's Guide to Everything just for inspiration for cool background ideas, and I rolled that Mercy was raised in the Feywild, actually. And so, yes, Mercy was raised by dryads in the Seelie Court. So I really like dryads. I think they're interesting, and I've always liked them even outside of D&D, just as a mythological creature.
Yeah, definitely. I've got the monster manual open to dryads right now, so I'll read this first little introductory paragraph to dryads. Travelers entering a forest might Damn it! Travelers entering a forest might catch a glimpse of a feminine form flitting through the trees. Warm laughter hangs on the air, drawing those who hear it deeper into the emerald shadows. I like how weirdly poetic this is to start. They didn't just say dryads are creatures that live in the forest. They went for the actual
That almost sounds sinister, like a siren or something like that.
A little bit,
to a certain degree. They're dryads and, well, I guess not ultimately, but dryads and nymphs are often
mischievous.
From the same.
They pull you into
from the same family tree in original Greek mythology.
What? I think that's just a result of the patriarchy making women seem like evil seductresses. So
that's fair.
I resist this stereotype.
Probably where this started.
Yeah, honestly.
So dryads are, in the Monster Manual, medium fey, and they are neutrally aligned. If you want to learn more about alignment, listen to our side quest on alignment. And yeah, what's a good place to start with these? What do you think, Onog?
So I find that the first place to start is start with the ASIs, or ability score increases.
Yeah.
And so what you want to do is you want to look at the stat block of the creature. If there are multiple versions of the creatures, like with goblins or with Yuan-Ti, oftentimes looking at each stat block and seeing which which of these stats, which of these abilities are generally the highest. If you only have one, like we have in this case, we kind of have to infer a few things, but this is a good place to start. It's a nice, just raw numbers place to go. What does it mean to be a dryad?
Definitely. So let's start by looking at, I guess, a dryad's inherent skills. Dryads have 10 strength, 12 dexterity, 11 constitution, 14 intelligence, 15 wisdom, and 18 charisma.
So right here, if you want to go with the traditional plus 2 plus 1 way that the player handbook handles most races, a good place to start here is plus 2 charisma, plus 1 wisdom. This is pretty good because, as you'll see later, the saving throw, I believe, for some of the natural abilities of the dryad is based off of charisma, and what another thing to think of is what will this race, what good classes would this make?
Yeah.
So like what a furbolg makes excellent druids, so they should have a lot of wisdom.
I think druid is the obvious choice.
Yeah, druid is an obvious choice for a dryad. A ranger would be an interesting offshoot of that.
I think there could also be an argument for a bard dryad in the sense we just talked about with sirens and with like singing that song to lure you into the woods, especially with something like a glamour bard where they unveil their like almost horrifying beauty in the sort of Galadriel, Lord of the Rings aspect. Of the dryad is just sort of normal, but when they unveil their attractive power, like that's what charisma would lead right into that.
And additionally, too, Fey patron warlocks. This all seem like very good fits for a dryad. So probably charisma and wisdom want to be their primary stats.
Yeah, I like it. I think that's a great idea. They do in their skills specifically. They get +4 to perception and +5 to stealth, and that stealth, leads into maybe the idea of dexterity though as well.
Yeah,
it could be.
Yeah,
that could be, but like you see here, dexterity it's
only +1.
Is barely their 4th highest stat. So I think that, and oftentimes proficiencies in monster manual stats can be often a little misleading, but can be to compensate for lower stats elsewhere.
Definitely.
Like a creature that is very good at hiding, but it is a strength-based rock monster that hides in the rocks, often they will have even double proficiency in stealth to compensate for the fact that they have no dexterity whatsoever.
Yeah,
definitely. Well, and I could see a racial ability taking the form of some of that boost, like how wood elves can attempt to hide in
natural terrain,
yeah, and I think a dryad would have that ability as well. So if you didn't want to give them as high of a stat boost in dexterity, you could give them an ability that makes it easier. They have advantage on stealth checks in natural terrain or something.
Typically, the next thing that race addresses would be the average age. How long do dryads live? Do we have any information on that?
I don't think there's anything that indicates that too aggressively, but there is the little stat block above. Yeah.
In traditional dryad mythology, they are tree spirits, and so you have a spirit of an entire forest or a spirit of a specific tree. And traditionally, it's my understanding that a dryad lives and dies with the tree that they are connected to. So that might depend on if you have sub-races of an arboreal dryad or an evergreen dryad. Their
like
lifespan, like their lifespan is probably going to be much connected longer to the type of tree that they're from, which obviously leaves a lot of room for individual.
Yeah, I think we'll probably lean into old. I think dryads will live for a long time.
Probably, yeah.
Is it too much to say that they? How old are trees? Like, how old are trees? Like, some trees can live like hundreds up to thousands of years.
There's currently, I can't remember how old it is, but the oldest organism on Earth is a tree right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, and even in the little like conversation blurb underneath the what you just read earlier is tree bound. A dryad can emerge from their tree and travel the lands around it, but the tree remains her home and roots her to the world. As long as the tree remains healthy and unharmed, the dryad stays forever youthful and alluring. If the tree is harmed, she suffers. If the tree is ever destroyed, the Dryad descends into madness.
Interesting.
That is probably something that I would want to adjust, because there are some trees, like old trees, that are so gnarly where you've almost got that Mother Willow from Pocahontas type of vibe going on. I am also just a little bit exasperated by
You're very
every attractive female character has to be attractive forever.
They're young and sexy forever.
Yeah,
What are you talking about?
I love the idea of like an old Mother Oak Dryad who's like
that
a
would be
gnarly
very
old
cool.
lady. So I think
I'm
they
into
should
it.
age with their tree.
Yeah, I agree. I think
Yeah.
that's fair. Do we want to tie anything about this race to an actual specific tree in the world?
That could be something we could play around with. That because a good way to look at this is as kind of a point system. It can be hard to value something like what is really the difference between dark vision to 60 feet, dark vision to 120 feet, things like that. When you're creating a race, though, you don't want to have too many positive things. Sometimes negative things are fine. And I think if we wanted to include tree-bound as a racial ability, that if the tree is ever harmed, or then it causes negative repercussions to the Dryad. I think that would be an excellent, both role-playing and mechanic-wise, a detriment to the Dryad.
Yeah, definitely. I think that'd be cool to put in later. So
how does that work then? If just geographically, if there's a specific tree that this Dryad is connected to, but you're traveling the world on a campaign,
and that can be another thing that complicates the issue.
Yeah,
is that maybe we don't want to keep that in there because we want our Dryad to feel like they can go wherever the party needs to go. Otherwise, because it does go out of its way to say they can leave.
Yeah.
But they are tied to that tree, they or that forest. This is where they call home. And that's fundamentally can be true for a lot of different characters. This is where home is. I will return here when we are done adventuring.
I think there's also something to be said for some races, even though they have deep connections with a specific environ, it doesn't mean that they can't leave it. Like you can be a Triton and you can play a campaign in the desert. It might provide some interesting role play concepts of what is it like for a creature from the water to be in the desert for an extended period of time. But there's no actually built in if you're away from the ocean for long enough, you die. You could work that out with your DM and stuff. So I think we could maybe do something along those same lines where they do have a home of a forest that they specifically belong to. And maybe there's some effects about if that forest is ever destroyed, but maybe it's more of just a connection that they have, that they sense the forest within them or something like that. But let's, for age, let's put a number on it. What do you think? Up to 900 years old? Is that old enough?
Let's give it elvish
750
lifespan. Yeah.
All right. Then let's say around 750.
Well, and obviously, if you were playing with this race, and D&D's never hard and fast. You'd always have the freedom to say, I want to play a palm tree Dryad, so she'll only live this long, or a evergreen Dryad, and she'll live this long. I think you'd leave that flexible.
Yeah. All right. Alignment is the next one that we cover. As we've talked about before, alignment is its own entire thing. But for player classes and player races, we would just probably take inspiration and say most Dryads are generally neutrally aligned.
But they could add a caveat in there, like they do every once in a while with the player races, that perhaps Dryads, willing to leave their home forest, could have any sort of alignment if they are motivated enough to leave their home, that they feel they need to protect it that way or to do something else.
Yeah.
That perhaps this can inform their alignment.
Yeah, being not your average Dryad indicates probably not your average alignment. Yeah. That they have left for some reason, whether that reason is good or evil or whatever. They're not living the normal life of a Dryad, so you're free to expand it in whatever direction you want. But most probably of the Dryads where they come from or in their culture would be along a neutral spectrum.
Yeah, much more closer to a neutral spectrum.
Nature is neutral.
Yeah, and lot of...
Speak for yourself.
Fair enough. No, we had this discussion. Nature is unaligned.
Nature is unaligned. Come on. All right. Let's move on to the next one then. Size.
Medium.
Yep, medium.
Yeah, that's usually the easiest one.
It doesn't give any specific height or anything. Would Dryads be shorter or taller than humans?
Honestly, well, like you were talking about, we could play it fast and loose. It could depend on the tree.
I want to.
That would be
my
interesting.
instinct is to say taller, because trees are taller than humans. I mean, they don't have
Are
to be
they
the size
taller
of the
and
tree.
more willowy,
Maybe
in
willowy,
their
yeah.
like they're generally speaking their body
Or like,
morph
yeah,
is
like
stretched?
the palm tree dryad is thinner and their skin is scratchier, but
An oak tree dryad could
an
be...
oak tree dryad could be a hefty lady. you know?
Yeah.
I think probably on average a little taller than humans, but not so tall as to become large or anything like that. But
Yeah.
just like on average, they'll be taller than most humans you meet. Like
Yeah.
elves on average are shorter than most humans you meet, but you can meet tall elves and short elves.
Like
But-
most, I feel like most dryads would probably be closer to like 6 feet.
Yeah,
Probably.
Just
Just
an
tall.
average
as
of
an
6
average, yeah,
feet.
a
Like
little
a tall
taller.
human man.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, speed, 30.
It says here in the stat block 30 feet, so
Yeah,
that
I would
seems
assume
nice and average.
We keep it at 30. Moving on.
Are wood elves 35 or am I crazy?
Wood elves, one of their special racial abilities is they do move faster.
And then that's pretty much all like the average normal things that go with most races. The only other thing to touch on is it does say they have dark vision, so I'd assume we say they have dark vision.
So, I mean, everything and its mother in 5th edition has dark vision, so why not dryads? So let's give it 60 feet of dark vision.
Yep.
And so this is another thing you have to take into account, because dark vision is definitely a bonus that it has, so we have to keep that in line with what we have. So...
Can they eat through photosynthesis, please? Can dryads not eat food? Can they just stand in a puddle and just look up to the sun?
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
I think it
Have
would
some
be a
puns
little
in the
weird
Underdark.
for dryads to like eat a salad.
Just chomp
to
down.
eat a salad
on some
or
mutton.
a hamburger.
Yeah,
well,
that would be
I
weird.
feel like it's interesting. I feel like a dryad would be more comfortable eating a hamburger
Then
than a
they
salad.
would, they would be on the
carnivore end.
that all meat
I
diet.
mean, trees get nourishment from the fertilizer created by
Exactly,
dead
by-
animals and
yeah.
plants. Like,
Yeah, so they eat
they
dirt.
eat everything.
Interestingly enough, there's not anything I can find in here
On what they eat?
what they eat.
Yeah.
Just that they protect nature,
Yeah.
animals included.
Animals included. Well, then fair enough. Maybe, yeah, we'll look at something like that, but that might be more of just a flavor thing.
That's
That
just
might
a
not be a
flavor.
racial ability.
Like they will probably need to gain nourishment in one way or another, just like any other player.
Yeah.
But maybe they don't eat food or need
Or
to.
or whatever their preference could be is it's like, well, I only eat plants because I have animal friends, or I only eat animals because I have plant friends.
I think one thing to talk about is
Maybe they're like mushrooms are cool to eat because they're jerks, but like
I hate
but
those
lettuce,
guys.
like some of my best friends are lettuce.
I think one thing to talk about is a lot of races, especially like elven sub races, have spells that they can inherently cast.
And yeah, that's going to be our next thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's move
Very,
on to that.
very, very good to bring up there, Mercy. So the first thing on the full stat block is innate spellcasting. The Dryad's innate spellcasting ability is Charisma, as we talked about before, so it's good that they have high Charisma. The Dryad can innately cast the following spells requiring no material components. At will, they gain the cantrip Druidcraft, 3 times a day each, Entangle and Goodberry, once per day each, Barkskin, Pass Without Trace, or Shillelagh.
Gasps into microphone. I just realized we give them a +2 to charisma. They have innate spellcasting. They'd be a great paladin.
Yeah, an ancient
An
paladin.
Oath of the Ancients paladin that defends the forests. That's
That would
like
be-
Yeah.
perfect.
That would be
Yeah.
super cool.
That'd be way sick. I'm into it. All right, we're doing an all Dryad campaign.
So that's a lot of spells.
So that's a lot of
Well,
spells.
More than most player races.
Yeah, we would not.
Feasibly, you can't really put all of that.
No.
Additionally, I find it very strange they can only cast Shillelagh once a day. Shillelagh is a cantrip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they are limited by Shillelagh, but they can cast Druidcraft as much as they want. But so here's where we can take inspiration from other classes. So for instance, Drow also have innate spellcasting, as do Tieflings.
Tieflings.
So
And technically high elves.
technically High Elves as well, but theirs is
It's a little
bit
different. It's a little different.
So if we want to look at the other races, do we have
Yeah.
a player's handbook?
Mhm.
Go ahead and pull it open to the Drow.
Yeah, sure thing.
I think one thing to throw out while we're pulling that up, in Dryad mythology, traditionally, they are these gentle, playful, friendly protectors of the forest, but if their forest is being threatened by humans,
They're
in a lot of
fierce.
mythology, they'll make the woods get real spooky. Like, they'll make it a scary place, and they'll attack you.
Interesting.
And so I think maybe, just something to think about incorporating that potentially, like darkness maybe, you know, like the
Darkness
woods get all
could be
dark
good.
around you because you're
They
threatening
do.
the
They
forest.
do get entangle.
Entangle
Yeah,
would be great
that
because
works.
that is often
The
flavored
woods
as
themselves
choking
literally reaching
vines.
out and grabbing people.
Yeah.
That does work
Additionally,
really
they
well.
also have a Fey Charm ability that comes in as an action later that we can talk about and
Yeah.
incorporate. But that lets them gain control of creatures and people.
Yeah. So the Drow, they have a subclass or subrace ability, Drow Magic. It says, you know the Dancing Lights cantrip. When you reach 3rd level, you can cast the Fairy Fire spell once with this trait, and regain the ability to do so when you finish a long rest. When you finish 5th level, you can cast the Darkness spell once with this trait, and regain the ability to do so when you finish a long rest. Charisma is your spellcasting ability for these spells.
So I think this is a good place to at least start.
Yeah.
For
Dancing Lights, Fairy Fire, Darkness are not even that far from where we're looking at already.
Yeah, like honestly, we could even give them that and call it a day. But I think if we want to stay true to the stat block that is presented to us from D&D itself,
yeah,
I think we can incorporate that. So Druidcraft, so each
That
of
makes a
those
lot of
spells, the one you get at level 1 is a cantrip for free. The one you get at level 3 is a 1st level spell. I think in Tieflings it is a 2nd level spell, or it is a 1st level spell that you can cast up to a 2nd level spell.
Yeah.
And then the one you get at 5th level is a 2nd level spell. So I think this is a good place to start. So Druidcraft, good cantrip to have. It could be a little bit too much, but maybe giving the choice between Druidcraft and Shillelagh. Maybe what kind of Dryad you are determines this, or something. If you are going to be a more physical assaulting Dryad,
Maybe
or
if you're a paladin, you take Shillelagh.
if you're a paladin, you take Shillelagh and beat them with your charisma.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, and so then the other spells we get, Barkskin. What level is Barkskin? I don't know off the top of my head.
I'll pull it up.
I can pull it up real quick. Hold on. Yeah. Barkskin is a 2nd level spell from what I see here.
2nd level transmutation spell. It's 1 action, touch range.
But Barkskin runs the interesting issue of it's only useful to unarmored characters.
Mm-hmm.
So if this Dryad becomes a druid, or if this Dryad becomes
a wizard,
a monk, or a wizard, then Barkskin is very good. If this Dryad became Oath of the Ancients paladin, like you were talking about,
I'm not going to use it.
You will never cast it, and you will never use that racial ability. So I think maybe let's see here. So Entangle, I think Entangle is a very good 1st level spell to have, to be able to cast once a day.
I like Entangle a lot, and I think that it's a good flavor, and I think that it's not too powerful, but it provides enough of
it doesn't in and of itself do any damage, but it provides you the ability to area control and do extra damage on gives you the opportunity. So I think Druidcraft is a good cantrip, maybe Shillelagh if you want to get frisky.
Mm-hmm.
Entangle is a good 1st level spell to gain at level 3, and then perhaps Pass Without a Trace, in akin to what Mercy was talking about with that extra stealth ability, where it could be that Pass Without a Trace is how they compensate for not inherently having a stealth or a good dexterity.
Yeah, how they travel in the woods unnoticed.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Tree Stride is perhaps the most appropriate, but it's level 5.
Yeah, Tree Stride is a spell, but we are actually about to... there is a abilities Tree Stride versus the spell.
Yeah.
And so...
which we might be able to adapt. So
yeah,
I would say Pass Without Trace is good for
So
that.
as far as innate spellcasting right now, I think Druidcraft...
or Shillelagh, probably you get a choice?
Yeah,
or do you think we just settle
choice.
on one? I don't know of any other race that gets a choice.
I think we should just settle on Druidcraft.
Yeah, that's
If
fair.
we find that there's not enough, which I don't think we will, we could probably go with Shillelagh as an option. But I think Druidcraft, Entangle, and Pass Without Trace are very good. You will always use them kind of spells.
Definitely.
So now we go to the next ability. Magic Resistance. The Dryad has advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. I do not agree with this as a player ability in any way, no matter what the origin of your race is.
Yeah.
I love Yuan-Tis, but Yuan-Tis should not have magical resistance. That is far too useful. It doesn't even give a source Like, it's just any magic that tries to happen at you, you have advantage on it.
Yeah.
That, while good for monsters, is not good for player races, because this mystical paladin of Oath of the Ancients, it has not only will it have advantage against all magic, it would also have resistance to damage from magic, because that is a paladin ability.
Yeah.
So we have already made the most perfect paladin, even if we add no other abilities other than magical resistance. So I think we could try and incorporate something like the gnomes, where they have advantage on like the mental aspects of things, but
I think there are other things that are more Dryad specific.
Yeah.
That are worth having over this.
Incorporating.
Yeah. So if we have extra space, maybe we can incorporate some kind of magical resistance. But I think this, like, if you had, I think it would be a worthy goal if you just had something that gave you +3 to random stats, had dark vision, and then had magical resistance, and that was all you got. That would be a very, very powerful race. So
yeah.
I think we need to
out.
just steer clear of that. So the next ability is Speak with Beasts and Plants. The Dryad can communicate with beasts and plants as if they shared a language. I think this is a lovely, flavorful thing, and it is not unprecedented for a race to have this. I believe forest gnomes have things like this, where they can communicate with small animals, and furbolgs also can just talk to plants and animals.
I think possibly maybe making it just plants, so that it isn't.
I don't think it is. I mean, we could do that, but I don't think that is too much. I think
both
being able to talk with both plants, because let's look up the furbolg real quick.
Furbolgs can, I think it just specifies woodland creatures, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah. Let me see.
You can double check.
Speech. So the furbolg traits in the Volo's Guide to Monsters is speech of beast and leaf. You have the ability to communicate in a limited manner with beasts and plants. They can understand the meaning of your words, though you have no special ability to understand them in return. You have advantage on all charisma checks you make to influence them. So that's
interesting.
That has an interesting give and take, because while the furbolg cannot understand the beasts understand the furbolg purpose with all intent.
Yeah.
And the furbolg has advantage on all charisma checks to communicate with them at all.
Yeah.
So I think if we could do a little bit of give and take. If we wanted to balance it, maybe a little bit more on less powerful.
Because I am just afraid of it being, oh, I'll be a druid and I don't even need to take speak with animals because I just can as a race.
That feels a little cheap to me.
Yeah.
I would feel better if it was just speak with plants, because forest gnomes can just speak with, is it a certain size? I've never played.
They can only talk with tiny animals.
They can talk with tiny animals just for free. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe saying like, maybe dryads can just talk to trees for free. But
now to break it down a little bit, you also have to keep into scope. And I'm not saying this isn't a direction we can go. Why are you playing a dryad?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are you playing a dryad because dryads can talk to animals and plants? Are you playing a dryad so you can get that sweet wisdom and charisma bonus? Yeah, a lot of people, if I were playing a hill dwarf, I'd get kind of mad if hill dwarfs aren't stocky and healthy and get the health bonus.
Because that's what you want them to be. Yeah, that's fair.
So if we take too much out, then we run the risk of it just not even really being a dryad. But if we add too much, then it can be too powerful.
I think it would be interesting to say, and let me know how you feel about this. You just put one word in it. You say, dryads can communicate with woodland beasts and plants as if they shared a language.
Okay.
Instead of being like any plant or animal ever, being like, if you're in or near a forest, yes. But if it's like a cactus in the middle of a desert, you'd be like, I can't understand him. He speaks a different language.
I think that would be that would be very good. I think it's a good limitation while still keeping the main flavor, while also adding the possibility of hilarious character interactions where it's like, this guy's speaking Spanish. I've got nothing.
I don't know what he's doing, man. You're in the Underdark and there's some weird glowing mushroom and like, talk to it. And you're like, how's it going? And then the DM is like, you get nothing back. Like you
hear
you hear I didn't catch none of that.
I'm pretty sure he's speaking Russian.
That was a perfect Russian that I just did. Right?
Anybody got Russian in the party? Anybody?
But it might even be, it would be interesting if we did sub races to maybe adjust it slightly for the sub races. Be like, as a like a tropical dryad, maybe you can speak to tropical plants and animals.
That could be something.
That would be a little bit interesting. It would just like adjust it along that. But
and an additional thing too, this can become a combat ability if the certain situations are right. But more often than not, this will be a social ability. I think that's why they felt comfortable giving it to furbolgs. Is just being able to talk to animals. All that can do is give you information and maybe give you some sway over the creatures around you. Additionally, as a class ability, totem barbarians gain the ability to cast speak with animals as a ritual. Yeah. Just at level 3, they can just go, I'm talking to you now. And I have found as a barbarian, and it also depends on the DM, that is not a very useful ability for me. Because I have on multiple situations attempted to gather information for the surrounding area from animals, and they have been less than helpful.
That can be really fun, though. Yeah. Thomas, you were DMing a campaign where we got way better information from someone's little chihuahua than we did from any of the villagers.
Villagers...
He had a swarthy accent.
Yeah, the villagers were talking about this monster that had been plaguing them, that it was 15 feet high with flaming red eyes, and the party was trying to find out what this monster was, and they're like, I cannot think of a monster that fits any of these descriptions. So they talked to somebody's little dog, and the little dog had a little Spanish accent, and he was, hola, mis amigos. And they were like, did you see a creature 15 feet tall with red glowing eyes? He's like, no, but I did see a creature with brown fur. It was maybe only 8 feet tall. It did not have glowing red eyes. Like, okay, this is much more helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're actually more useful. And then they were like, do you know who is a good boy? And he went, si, I am the good boy.
You're so a good boy.
You're so a good boy. But
that's fantastic.
That always, though, depends on your DM, like you said. Sometimes DMs, because they don't want to give you more information, will be purposefully obtuse about what the animals say.
So honestly, even as it's written, I don't think it's that bad.
That'd be great as a ranger.
That'd be very useful as a ranger.
Yeah. I think it's cool.
I think, but if we want to scale it down, we could make it the furbolg version, or even
the woodland version,
or even like the regional specific. I think the regional specific one is a perfect compromise.
That's
I think it's a fun idea.
Flavorful, I think, as well.
We'll put it in.
All right.
Let's move on.
Now we get to Tree Stride. Now this is different than the spell Tree Stride. Once on her turn, the Dryad can use 10 feet of her movement to step magically into one living tree within her reach and emerge from a second living tree within 60 feet of the first tree, appearing in an unoccupied space within 5 feet of the second tree. Both trees must be large or bigger. I would definitely change this to not once per turn, but I would say maybe once per short rest or even long rest. Because while this is a very useful mobility ability, it is limited in the locations you can use it in. There have to be two large trees, and you don't get to control where those large trees are.
Yeah. How does this differ from the spell?
The spell,
the spell Tree Stride is much more powerful.
I have it up right here. The major difference is you expend 5 feet of movement, but the other tree can be within 500 feet. Okay. Yeah, those are the two major differences. Yeah, it pretty much is.
Well, and then I think even beyond that, there's a much higher level spell called like transport via plants or something, where you can touch a plant that is large enough to fit you within inside of it, and then teleport to any other plant you have seen that is big enough for you to be inside of it. So Critical Role uses that ability to just transport across the world at any point in time whenever they want to.
That's really powerful.
Yeah.
So I don't think that this is all that powerful, the Dryad version, but I agree that I think it should be on probably a rest as opposed to
I think a short rest would be fine.
Yeah.
That way it gets used, and if you're in the forest, oh boy, this Dryad, she has everybody's number. She can go right where she wants to go and control the environment around her, kind of a thing. But if you're in the desert, it's not that big of a deal. You're not missing out on too much.
Right.
Yeah.
So if it's once every short rest, essentially you're doing it once per combat. On
Pretty
average.
much, you can do it once per combat. Yeah. It's very akin to, but more limited than giving someone Misty Step.
Yeah.
As a bonus action, but in this case, it uses movement instead. as the
Oh,
sacrifice.
it's not. Yeah, it's not an action or bonus action to do. I guess you just move.
You just
That
move.
is interesting. I like
Or a
that.
Reaction.
Well, what are you reacting to? That's the issue.
No,
of
yeah.
making it a reaction.
I think it's just
Yeah.
about using your movement, and I like that as a cost for it because you still want to be able. I think this would fit very well with a couple of the different classes we've talked about. Saying like a ranger, you shoot off a bow at somebody, and then you tree stride away a little bit, but it's not so far as the spell. But it allows you to reposition for another good attack later.
Yeah, and maybe you could then take the hide action or something so
Yeah.
that they don't know where you are or things like that.
Cast pass without
Can
trace
you
on
hide
yourself.
in a tree.
No, you
Well,
have
you
to end.
can't. You can't stay in the tree,
Yeah.
and it's all the thing is that
Just moving through
you
it.
just move through it. So actions we have club,
Which is just their weapon attack.
which is just their weapon attack. But now we get to some funky stuff. Fey charm. The Dryad targets one humanoid or beast that she can see within 30 feet of her. If the target can see the Dryad, it must succeed on a DC 14 Wisdom saving throw or be magically charmed. The charmed creature regards the Dryad as a trusted friend to be heeded and protected. Although the target isn't under the Dryad's control, it takes the Dryad's requests or actions in the most favorable way it can. Each time the Dryad or its allies do anything harmful to the target, it can repeat the saving throw, ending the effect on itself as on a success. Otherwise, the effect lasts 24 hours, or until the Dryad dies, is on a different plane of existence from the target, or ends the effect as a bonus action. If a target saving throw is successful, the target is immune to the Dryad's Fey charm for the next 24 hours. The Dryad can have no more than one humanoid and up to 3 beasts charmed at any one time. Now,
Yikes.
that's a lot of information to go
Mhm.
through.
It's
and
also,
that's
like,
very powerful
very
to give to a player
good.
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
So then, what we could try to do instead is we could just replace that instead of one of the innate spellcasting abilities, have it instead of pass without a trace, we have suggestion. Or instead of entangle, we could have charm person
Mm-hmm.
/ animal. I know Yuanti, not that we're taking too much out of their book, considering they have magic resistance, and everyone was just like, yeah, that's balanced. Leave that in there.
Tell us how you really feel, Onog.
Don't worry about it. I actually like Yuanti's quite a lot. But it just seems such a strange thing
Yeah.
to, oh yeah, kobolds, they're too powerful. Let's give them negative strength modifiers. But Yuanti, let's just give them magic resistance.
For free.
For free at no negative costs whatsoever.
Yeah.
So we definitely need to reflavor this because we cannot just give this ability to a player.
Definitely. I'm wondering whether it would be better to do change one of the spells out to a charming spell, or you could have an ability that is flavorfully reminiscent of this concept, but is not the same.
Like what you could do is Fey Charm, like either the Dryad can cast Suggestion without any material components once per day, or instead of that they could cast Animal Friendship at level 3, which I think is what you can have three animals once per day, either or. This is not unprecedented that 2 different spells use the same ability slot.
Yeah.
Once again, we go back to the Furbolg. The Furbolg has Furbolg magic. You can cast Detect Magic and Disguise Self with this trait, using Wisdom as your spellcasting ability for them. Once you cast either spell, you can't cast it again until you finish a short or long rest. When you use this version of Disguise Self, you can yada yada yada. So we could do it where it's you can cast Suggestion or Animal Friendship level 3 once per long rest, because I think if we made this short rest, that would be a little too powerful, and that would be giving too many good things, I think, to the Dryad.
I agree.
Honestly, I feel like this is less flavorful than the more nature-based abilities. The idea of them being really charismatic and casting suggestion and things. I feel like, from my perspective, this is branching too much into like a siren. And as I've said, I'm just so over this idea that every female mythological creature is a temptress who will hypnotize you with her beauty that lasts forever, and
or an ugly old witch in the woods.
Yeah, I don't understand why a tree spirit would be particularly charismatic.
Well, it's
even.
because it's a fae specifically.
Yeah,
the
that's
fae
fair.
themselves have an innate beauty and allure that lures people into the fae world where they can benefit from them.
Do whatever they want.
Yeah. But
Fair enough.
there is also worth bringing up really, really quick, just in case anyone was worried about this. Doing a quick Google. There is a Greco-Roman male counterpart to dryads called the Druce, which is like dryad but male. And I think that just because dryads in the Monster Manual are always female, I don't think that you would have to be female as a dryad player character. You could probably find a way to be a Druce or some version. Gender might not matter to your character. That's always been very fluid in 5th edition there's no benefits or negatives for either gender. And so I don't want people to think that you have to be female in order to be a dryad. You could probably be whatever you feel like. Yeah.
But it is interesting to note this is one of the few monster races, even amongst the Fae, that they have a determined gender.
They are gendered. Yeah, it is interesting.
Or that they are gendered in the way they're talked about. Because I think even like certain Fae creatures that are very traditional gnomish, like the garden gnome aspect kind of a thing, even in their flavor texts and things like that, they are not referred to as him. They are referred to as they.
Yeah.
And so this dryads are very tied to the feminine. But if there is precedent for masculine dryads, I'm very interested.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a cool idea.
I think that would be cool. I like the idea of this race that is so innately connected with the forest, not like in the wood elf way of being a civilization that connects with the forest, but literally growing from the forest themselves, and almost being just a more humanoid, like treant type character, where they are trees. They might even refer to themselves as trees.
I am a tree.
Yeah, they might even say,
that's like, my brother over there.
I am a spruce, or like I am an aspen.
Yeah, that's the question then, where this wouldn't even come up statistically or probably even need to be on the page, but it's something that you would think about if you were playing one of these. And D&D becomes a dating sim like more often than a DM would wish. But how is a dryad or a druce born? Like, I don't think a dryad and a druce get together. I think probably it is like they are grown out of the tree.
They grow from the trees.
But then does every tree have a spirit? Like, is there a dryad for every tree?
I mean,
or is it a
that
special
could be an
magic
interesting
forest?
thing, because it could be that only certain trees still have dryads, or only in these deep woods where so many trees congregate together are dryads capable of existing.
It could be that in the Feywild, every tree is a dryad, but in the regular plane of existence, only certain trees close to the Feywild, like deep in the deep woods, those trees can be dryads or druce, perhaps, if you're doing that. But I like the idea that they belong more to the Fey than to the normal world. So not every single tree is one, but they have a deep connection with trees. So if they saw you cutting down trees, they would be like, "You are killing trees. How dare you?" Not literally like that is another dryad, but they still feel connected to those trees.
Structures.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
They can refuse to sit on a chair in the tavern.
Jimmy!
It's just like it'd be like you walk into a tavern just
made
out
of
human bones and you sit down on them.
Hey, I've been to that tavern. It's all right. They have half-off appetizers after 8.
The drinks are okay, though.
Yeah, that's fair.
That tavern inside the skull of a Taraz.
Yeah.
Such a cool idea.
Yeah, I think this is cool. So instead of that Fey charm, do we have anything we'd like to substitute it with specific? I was also thinking of, instead of necessarily being an actual charming effect, saying like you can grant yourself advantage on persuasion checks for a certain amount of time once per day or something like that, just to flavorfully remind you of their very alluring. Yeah, they are better at getting people to do what they want than others, but not in necessarily like they cast a spell on them. If we do want that, I think that has a better place in the innate spells, replacing one of them with a charm, if we want it to be actually magic. But I think that their natural appearance and their natural nature just makes them more persuasive than others. What do you think?
I actually kind of like that as a nice substitute, where it's like, even especially if it's just advantage on a specific kind of check, that could even be bumped up to another short rest ability, where it's just like once per short rest, you can just go, hey, you know,
how you doing? I'm a tree.
I'm a tree. You cute little wombat, want to help? You know?
And then that wombat's like, of course I do. That sounds great. Are you free later? Like,
ooh, see, I've got this thing though.
would we want to limit it to persuasion checks, or could it be
or animal handling checks?
Oh, yeah, it could be. You could give a list of one of the following and say animal handling, persuasion, maybe even intimidation, because of that sort of, like we talked about, the scary part of the woods.
Yeah,
I think that might be interesting to be a part of as well, of being the more harsh
the
nature
Snow
of the
White
forest.
she's
Yeah.
running through.
She becomes a spooky crocodile log. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Maybe those three? Or is there others that you
That's what I
might
would
think
want
would
if
be
I were
useful
playing
or
a
not
dragon.
useful?
I mean, I like that. But at a certain point, it's like, then should we expand it to all wisdom and charisma checks and then just make it long rest?
I mean,
which would you rather have as a player?
Yeah, exactly.
They already just have really high charisma.
Yeah. They have high charisma, so they're going to already be good at those.
Yeah.
Because I don't want it to be, like you said, I don't want it
Well,
to
then,
be...
how about this? How about we could take a leaf out of...
Leaf. Nice, great, thank you. All right, Onog, who's the bard here? I'm the jokes guy.
We could take a leaf out of Volo's guide. In that, there are multiple creatures that have multiple options for getting 2 extra skills for free. So, for instance, Kenku, let me find them. Kenku can choose Kenku training. You are proficient in your choice of 2 of the following skills: acrobatics, deception, stealth, and sleight of hand.
That would be cool.
So we could add, like, you are proficient in 2 of these: persuasion, intimidation, animal handling, and survival. Or something
nature
like
checks, survival checks,
or nature. Yeah,
I don't know. What do you think?
Honestly, I think just because we're limiting them to the choices they make.
Yeah,
I think that could be a decent alternative to just giving them another spell they can cast for free. And that way it still feels like you're a dryad, but it's also balanced to things around you.
And you can personalize it to what kind of a dryad you're being. So if you're only picking 2, you're saying, like, I'm going for intimidation and
be the spooky
survival checks. I am the kind that hunts you out of my woods.
That's what I would pick.
Like, that's interesting. Or it could be
persuasion and animal handling. I am the Disney princess that whistles and the birds whistle with me.
Yeah.
Things like that.
I think that'd be very cool. I like that as an idea. You get to choose proficiency, was it?
Yeah, proficiency.
Yeah.
Choose proficiency. Yeah.
I've also just been in the back of my mind thinking about how some races sleep and some races don't. Like elves don't sleep, and while it seems like dryads feel a little bit more connected to elves, I feel like dryads would sleep.
Yeah.
Because I feel like trees are sleepy.
I like that.
I mean, because there's a ton of stuff in fantasy where it's like you go into the woods and the trees slowly wake up, but also just all the art that I've ever seen in my life of like a woodland animals like snuggled up for the winter in a hollow tree just makes me feel like trees are kind of sleepy and cozy. So I feel like dryads would sleep.
And honestly, even due to photosynthesis, plants sleep.
Yeah.
Because they're not getting energy from the sun. So I think
I like the idea
very
of
much the dryad would sleep.
Does your hair fall out in the winter?
Well, and
that'd be so fun. If you're an evergreen, it wouldn't. But if you're,
I feel like instead of hair, it would be kind of foliage.
Yeah, if you're a leafy dryad, you could have leaves that maybe you go bald in the winter.
Or your hair, like.
But those would be just like flavor that you do with your DM. I think that's very fun.
Or it's just one of those things where they're just like, it's getting wintertime, better get to that pixie cut and just
shave it off.
They just shave it all off.
Where it's like all the leaves that are.
Or it's like it's gross and dead hair, so they like want to get rid of it. That could be a
cool
thing in like dryad society. It's like, well, it's wintertime. Everybody get to your.
I like the idea.
Nice winter haircuts.
They all become redheads in the autumn.
Yeah.
Like that's very fun. I like that a lot.
I think they should definitely
or like
change
shiny yellow things like that.
Yeah. That'd be great. I really like that, and I like the concept of your like your tree origin affecting you. I don't know if we're gonna do sub races right now. I think we're gonna leave this as just the race.
Yeah, I don't think we need to do a sub race.
Yeah, I think it's all right as it is.
There's a lot of room to flavor.
I think the sub race can be a good flavor standpoint.
Definitely,
where things can come from that.
I want to play a dryad now. I like this a lot.
Yeah, very very fun. I like it. I'll have the images up for. We'll finalize it,
Yeah.
and then I'll put them up at the end.
Nice.
If you have any feedback on how we should have done, or any ideas you want to bring forward to a Dryad, by all means, leave it in the comments below.
Yeah, we'll check them out. We'll see. And if you know of other interesting Dryad player races, like we'd said, put those in the comments as well. And also go tell them that ours is better and that we just made the best Dryad player race anyone's ever seen. So yeah, let them know about that. And with that, I think that brings this side quest to a close. And nobody even died.
Nobody even died.
Nice. We've gotten the 3 flawless amethysts to the random NPC, and we can go
time to go back to the campaign now. Wait, where's Bean? Is Bean on the main quest all by herself?
Oh, dang it, Bean.
Bean, she has headphones in. She can't hear us. Bean, wait.
Bean, wait.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye.